I was about a month or two away from graduation of getting my master's degree in 1999. And I said, what can I do to really push the medium? Because for me, it's all about the medium. And I want to really be someone who contributes to the medium, takes it to places where it necessarily hasn't necessarily been. And I want to make my own rules, and I want to make my own this and that. So I came up with this idea of stacking things. And I wanted to do something that was so completely different than what I'd been doing. I'd really, mastered the heads and the surface design. I worked with a really cool guy in Tallahassee, and I traveled the United States with him for a summer. He took me to all of his galleries and all that, and introduced me to the owners and all that, and I got to see the business side of it. And that was great and all that, but I really wanted to do something that made me stand out. And so with this concept of doing stacked objects, I said to myself, well, what's the best way to do it? I could do either clay or I could do slip. And that's where slip really comes in, because casting slip allows you to do so much more differently than what clay does. With clay, if I were to do the same sort of techniques, first of all, you couldn't cast objects, which is what my early work was about. And that's I'm talking about the evolutionary bouquet series, which is the early work that started in summer of '99. So I decided on casting slip. I went to a few garage sales around Tallahassee, and I bought my first 50 molds, and they were small molds. I thought that was a good manageable size, and I still work with every single one of these molds today. So it's been 16 years that I've been working in this style. I don't have the molds here at this residency, but I did ship them to Taiwan, and so I do have them there. And I used them a little, but so anyway, long story short, I had this excellent opportunity with this gallery in Tallahassee to have a solo exhibition in August of 1999. And so I had about 3 months roughly from the time I graduated with my degree, my master's degree at Florida State, to build this new body of work that was based on stacking objects. And so I had some molds like butterflies and flowers, worms, little cute things, napkin ring holders, salt and pepper shakers, you name it. It was a mixed match sort of thing. But in America, you have access to a lot of different molds, and you can find a lot of interesting things. It so happened that these molds, these 30 or 50 molds, whatever it was, were probably made in the 1960s. So the people that I got it from, they were an older couple. I believe they were probably casting stuff for a living, making do-it-yourself pottery, where you cast the objects and then people come in and glaze and color and all that, and then they fire it for you. So I took these molds and I used it, and I built these things that I put together. And I remember I had like a large spark plug. I had like I actually made a lot of my own molds at that point. So I had some baby doll parts that I had cast together in plaster, and I was slip casting those. And I had a spinal column that I found from a deer that was killed on the side of the highway, and I put that in the back of my Jeep at the time. And that was crazy. I made all these molds. And anyway, so I was combining the molds that I had made with molds that I found, and I was creating these assemblages. I didn't know what I was doing. I just thought, let's stack the stuff together, let's put it together, let's see if we can make some sense out of something that doesn't necessarily have to make sense. Therein lies the whole beauty of abstract, is that I get to make the rules. No one can say, you did it wrong or right. And that's something that I really like about working in the style, is because there is no wrong and right. If I was doing pottery, there's millions of people that can do it better than me. And I was a damn good potter. But to come up with something, let's call it a new visual vocabulary to be cliche, art speak, whatever you want to call it, I wanted to make a new body of work that was interesting. And from these early pieces and these assemblages came within a year what I call the evolutionary bouquet. And the evolutionary bouquet was a lot of these pieces that were put together, and I assembled them into about a 25-inch, which is 70 centimeters, something like that, sculpture that looked like, it resembled somewhat of a bouquet, like a floral bouquet. And I thought, well, you know, it's arranged, it's stacked, much like you would do a floral bouquet. And it has balance, and things like this are important to me when I work abstract. For me, it's gotta be a beautiful object. I like that idea of making something beautiful. I love color for the most part. Color is super important to me. And just the act of making is what's really important to me. I always loved as a kid using Legos. I loved stacking wooden blocks. I loved, even as a young adult, playing the game Jenga, where you pull out the wood blocks and all that, and you stack them and see how high you can go. And I love watching people in Tennessee at the riverbanks stacking rocks and seeing how high you could stack them and the balance. So balance is really important to me, and composition. You know, I came from a really traditional background with Ken Ferguson in pottery and all that, and it's got to have a strong foundation first of all. So the pieces, the evolutionary bouquet, had a strong foundation, and from that I could build up and vertical, and therein lies the challenge is building anything with clay and going up, because gravity. And so anyway, long story short, the evolutionary bouquet was born, and then after that one piece, it all became de-evolutionary, because I tend to get tired with things kind of quick, and I want to move on, do something different. And so I started cutting up the pieces and reassembling the pieces and trying to mimic shapes. Like if the mold was a butterfly, I'd cut it in half, and you'd have half the wings, and then maybe I'd make the other half out of hands or something like that. So it was just, no rules at all. It was just basically going on and seeing what would happen, seeing where it would take you. And I think that that's the beauty of it, because there's no constraints in doing that. And so at the time, the early work was really just about going with an idea, taking it as far as I could, and not knowing where it was going necessarily, and then having it evolve into what it did. And that I can go into in the next question or whatnot. But because it's interesting how when you work over the years and you see where it's gone and how you're influenced by worldly events and all that, how a simple idea such as just stacking things randomly leads to more formal compositions, and then it evolves. So the evolutionary bouquet and de-evolutionary bouquet, whatever you want to call it, has certainly evolved over the years into something that I never even saw coming. But that's essentially how the first few pieces came along. Again, the first small ones were like little dinky pieces that were nothing special. But looking back, they were some of the most important stuff to get where I'm at now.
Okay. Actually, when you're talking about the evolutionary bouquet, I was a little confused about the bouquet that you are talking about.
Okay, bouquet is a bouquet is a floral arrangement.
A floral arrangement.
A bouquet is something like when the bride gets married,
yeah,
and they throw the flowers. That's a bouquet.
Oh.
Or a bouquet can be when you get flowers in the mail.
Mm-hmm.
They're arranged, and you go to a florist.
Oh.
And so, in a loose way, like this piece here was the original one. And when you look at it and you kind of squint at it, it looks like it could be flowers. And it's colorful. It's the most joyful piece maybe out of the whole series that I did. But there's so much that you can read into as far as floral bouquet, because bouquets are associated with things like weddings.
Yes.
Or they can be associated with things like death.
Yeah.
Or they can be associated with so many different things. Flowers, I'm sure in Eastern culture mean something completely different than they do in Western culture. So I like the idea of that. I've always liked duality in meaning. And I like the fact that things can be lighthearted on one end, but have a dark side on the other. And if you look at every single piece that I've done up until this residency here, because I have yet to do one like that, they all have black in them. And the black is a special technique that I've developed that I do at a certain temperature, that with the slip, it works out perfectly. And what it does is it allows me to give full coverage to the piece so that there's no white, there's no bare clay body at all. And that's important because I don't want to leave anything, undone. And the black not only covers the whole piece and makes it good in that sense, but it also, it's a nice juxtaposition when you're putting black against a light color like yellow. It really makes it pop out at you. And it also, depending on when I take the piece out of the kiln, if I open up the kiln early, I can get some crackle in the glaze, and then that goes into the crackle, and it really makes a nice look. Sometimes I use decals, sometimes I use China paint. I haven't done that in a long time. I just now just kind of go at it, and now I've completely changed the way I work, but I still use that as the basis. The bouquet, I still call them bouquets kind of because they're still arranged, but floral bouquet is really about arrangement for me and building and like you would put a flower in a certain place or a leaf or something like that, I'm putting clay instead.
OK， 好吧。
说了挺多，你捋一下。
我捋一下啊。好吧。他的大学教育啊，可以说是从